For this Adventurers League legal 5e D&D character build, we're going to break out a little known Care Bear known as the Smite Bear.
First off, Dave, sounds like you know a little bit way too much about Care Bears. And second off, what?
Fine, we'll just build a druid, ranger, or some other naturally type thing, I guess. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as always, I'm hanging with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, maybe it's your first time hanging out in Ted's Basement. It's a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Sometimes we even talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and attune to that notification bell.
Alright, so we're working on our Champion of the Wild character build here for Adventurers League. As always, we're going to do a character build guide, and we're going to have a character sheet that you guys can follow along with.
So the links for those is going to be down in the description below. I always like to break down, where we're going with this, look at some race options, class options, background before we actually dive into the thing.
Alright, so what are the races we're looking at for our Champion of the Wild?
We were looking at Aasimar, we're looking at Tiefling, looking at Human, Half-Elf, as well as the Kalishtar.
Now, these seem like a bunch of odd choices for a Champion of the Wild.
They do, but, when we were putting this character build idea together, we kind of thought it was an interesting dynamic or mechanic that worked out really well that's going to require both charisma and wisdom. So we went with races that were going to give us bonuses in those things.
All right, so you people are probably in the dark trying to figure out what are we building here.
Well, there were some clues in the intro.
There are some clues in the intro, so maybe we should just tell them, we are looking to combine Wild Shape and Smite.
Indeed. I think the idea, we were discussing other characters and other video topics, a couple weeks back, and the idea of, I can smite while in Wild Shape. That's amazing. I want to do that. It's like, that would be a great character. So let's make it.
We looked at the races that actually give us a bonus to both charisma and wisdom. If we're talking about Wild Shape, our physical stats aren't going to matter nearly as much for several reasons. One, we're going to be using the animal stats a lot of times. And two, we're going to get a buffer of hit points based on however many hit points the Wild Shape beast gives you.
So we went with things that were far more mental heavy, character or race options.
All right, so we're going to kind of highlight the things that we think are important for this build. But like we said, there's a character build guide. There's a character sheet from D&D Beyond. You can use those to follow along and see exactly how we did it and how we get to where we're going with this. But before we do that, I do want to thank our sponsor that makes this possible, D&D Beyond. It's a great resource. It makes making these character builds a lot easier. It makes building characters so easy. You can build a character in mere minutes. No exaggeration. It's just click, click, click. Boom, you're done for pretty much any level. A little bit higher, it takes a little bit more time. But there's so many more great resources over there. You can build magic items, races, subclasses, encounters, monsters, pretty much anything in the game. You can build it over there from scratch, or you can import existing stuff, tweak it, change it, make it what you want. They just launched the Alpha Encounter Builder. The database for everything that's official D&D is huge, and it's so easy now that you have D&D Beyond where you can just search for it all. But there's so much more over there.
You can check out all the homebrew content that other people are creating. Touch it with a grain of salt, because sometimes things might not be up to your particular standards. But if you're running a campaign, you can create your campaign, share it with your players, be able to put in notes that they'll be able to see and understand, keep your secret DM notes hidden from them. It's a great tool, a great resource, and that's not touching on all the free content that they have over there as well.
Yep, you have videos by Todd Kenrick with, famous D&D people as well as the designers. You have articles that are going up over there all the time. So even if you don't want a subscription, you can go over there and still use D&D Beyond for free. All the SRD is over there for free as well. So go check it out. Sign up for a free account.
So diving back into this this character build, we already talked about we're looking at, a smiting wild shaper. So that pretty much tells us that we have to go in very few ways. We're either going to get our smite from Warlock or we're going to get it from Paladin. Where do we see us going?
You know, actually both of them would work thematically depending on, you know, what you choose as your subclasses. But you know what? When I think smite, I really do think paladin.
So we have Paladin. There's only one real way to get Wild Shape, and that's through Druid. So we're going to go Druid. We're going to go Paladin. Classes are picked.
So the classes are picked. We just have to figure out the progression. We're still going to need to actually choose our race. And we still need to talk about backgrounds and stats as well.
All right, so background, you know, if we already know that we're going to go Druid or Paladin, or Druid and Paladin, both things offer up a number of options. I really like Hermit for Druids. For Paladins, you know, I like Soldier or Acolyte. But since this character is a champion, you know, somebody who is looking to, you know, rise up, to me, that really reaches out to the folk hero.
Yeah, folk hero works really well. Also, you had mentioned Hermit when you think Druid. When I think nature character, I also think Outlander a lot of times. So that would also have been a good choice. But because we're making a champion and the folk hero kind of gets their start by being a bit of a hero, it's right in the name, I think that's where we're going to go.
The only thing we have left to pick is going to be our race. Now, there's some interesting options when it comes to what you can do while you're in your animal form. So I was looking at Aasimar because they have that, you know, pseudo lay on hands ability that doesn't say it's a spell. So there's nothing to say you couldn't do that while you're in beast form.
Not only that, too, at third level, they get that ability where they can summon spectral or incorporeal wings like an angel. So if you want to be a flying wolf or, you know, when pigs fly, you could totally do that.
All right, so now I'm really digging this, you know, this Aasimar Druid Paladin, you know, the spectral wings on the animal. I think you could have a lot of fun with that.
And we're also going to go with the Protector sub-race for Aasimar because that's the one that's going to give you a bonus to Charisma and Wisdom.
All right, we're done with making the hard choices. We already know where we're going to go with that. So let's dive into, you know, the levels. What are we really looking at here?
All right, the levels and what is actually going to be important to this build. The first most important decision is, do we start with Druid or do we start with Paladin? So if you wanted to be a Paladin wearing heavy armor, then obviously I would say go Paladin. But because we're going to be a Druid, we can't wear metal armor. We have that restriction. So unless you eventually find some dragon scale armor, that's not really going to be an option for you. So you're going to be kind of stuck with medium armor anyway. And Druid does get one more proficiency than the Paladin. So I feel like the Druid would probably be a great place to start.
So basically it boils down to, do you want an herbalism kit or do you want that heavy armor?
Since we're not probably going to use that heavy armor, we might as well get the herbalism kit.
So we start off with Druid. We get the lesser hit die. We get the more skills. You know, we get those mental saving throws, and you know we have access to spells right away. So I think, you know, going with, you know, Shillelagh and Thorn Whip, I think are going to be this guy's forte to start.
Yeah, they're going to be great options. We're going to have that high wisdom, so we're going to be able to use our wisdom to beat people down with. We are going to need to talk about stats because we are multi-classing.
Right. So we know that as a Druid, we need a 13 Wisdom, and for Paladin, we need a 13 Strength and a 13 Charisma.
So for this character build, we did something a little bit different. We did not use the standard array. We actually went with a point buy, and we went with a 13 Strength because we know we need it. Our Dex is a 10. Our Con is a 10. Our Intelligence is a 10.
But we put a 15 in Wisdom and a 14 in Charisma so that we can maximize, you know, those racial bonuses from the Aasimar, starting us off with a 16 in both. This character is not, you know, above average in intelligence, dexterity, or constitution, but we're also not suffering from any kind of negatives either that the standard array typically gives.
Yeah, I like it. I like it when, you know, you don't have a dump stat, because it feels like when everyone has a dump stat, it's no longer like a cool and unique thing. So actually being kind of average in a lot of things is the cool and unique thing now. Now, the one thing we're going to suffer from is a lack of hit points, but we're going to lean on that wild shape for those bonus hit points. So I think that should make up the difference.
So you'll want to stay out of combat, be a healer and not a frontline combatant for those first levels before you can really get into your wild shape abilities. So for this particular character build, we're looking to be druid heavy for a number of reasons. Number one, we want to maximize the wild shape ability of the druid, as well as be able to get access to all of those spell levels to self heal and to be able to use those paladin smites while you're in that form.
Now, we decided to go with a 14-6 split, like you said, with the druid. That kind of gets us our capstone ability for being a druid for the subclass anyway. And then, the paladin 6th level was really important because that's going to give you their aura, and getting your charisma modifier to all your saving throws is a big deal, and that's going to stack with your wild shape ability.
I would agree. We also get extra attack at a level before that, which if you're, wild shaping into a creature that doesn't have multi-attack, this is going to be useful. So you can get, 2 bites or 2 claws if you're, choosing something that doesn't already get those extra hits.
Now, the caveat to that is you can either multi-attack or you can extra attack. You cannot do both, but you do have the option, whatever you find more beneficial. And also it might change what options you choose as far as your wild shapes, because some options that get less attacks may now be a lot more attractive.
I would agree. We get, as Dave says, we get the maximum ability from whichever circle we're going with. And for this particular druid, we've already talked about how much we're into the wild shape, which means we have to go Circle of the Moon.
Yes, if we want to get the most out of it. So we are going to bum rush our Circle of the Moon, I think, druid right away, get 4 levels. And then we're going to be done with druid for a while. Then we're going to go paladin for 6 levels. All of our ASIs are going to be stat increases for this character.
So going a 614, we do wind up losing out on 1 less ASI, one feeder stat adjustment. But we are looking to go wisdom, charisma, to get both of those maximized. Having the higher wisdom is going to be good for when you actually do choose to cast your druid spells. You are going to, using this build, get high level spell slots. So having that high wisdom is going to give you a high to hit and a high DC when you choose to do it. Going with a high charisma is going to give you that higher saving throw bonus once you get your aura of protection. So super, super helpful to have both.
We did mention earlier that we wanted to be thematic with this build. So for our paladin subclass that we're going to choose, we're going to take Oath of the Ancients.
I think that's the most fitting when you're talking about a nature-based character. I think Oath of the Ancients is a pretty cool, paladin feature. And if you're not walking around in the heavy armor, no one's really going to expect you to be a paladin, because I think all paladins are wearing full plate. So when you start, bringing the smite on as a bear or a wolf, they're like, where's that coming from?
Now, this is the point where I expect a lot of you to argue with us. And I can't totally fault you for it, because that Oath of the Ancients 7th level aura ability is really good. That is half damage or resistance to all spell attacks. So you may decide for your version of this build to take 1 less level of druid and take that extra level of paladin for that, because that will carry over into your wild shapes as well. That would be a valid option.
So if you're looking to go that route, I would then go 12 druid and 8 paladin. That will wind up giving you an extra ASI, which gets you some extra fun things. You can choose what feat you want to add, or maybe bump up your other stats to do more outside of your wild shape forms. Because if you're not going to get the capstone for Circle of the Moon, you're sacrificing that ability. I'd sacrifice your 9th level spell slot to get the extra little bit. All right, so we can also get into like why we went with this particular combination, and I've already talked about how awesome it is to smite in animal form. But there's other things that a paladin gets that actually wind up working well with druid as well while you're in a wild shape.
You're going to be able to lay on hands, even though you can't cast spells. So you still have that utility of that ability, which is great. We mentioned extra attack, how that's going to carry over, the smite. But there is one area too that we should probably talk about that isn't going to carry over.
That's the fighting style, and I know a lot of paladins wind up taking either defensive or protective protection, and you're really not going to be able to do either when you're in wild shape, because you're not wearing armor unless you can somehow wild shape and get someone to put barding on you, and you're not using a shield, you're not using a great weapon, so we're really out of use of a fighting style. So we wound up going with defensive, just so that you have that extra point of armor class for when you've been surprised and you haven't had a chance to wild shape yet.
Or maybe you get a really nice DM and at some point you do get armor or barding that you can wear in your wild shapes, maybe a magic item or something of that nature that allows your armor to transform with you. When you wild shape, you do have 3 options. It melds, it falls to the ground, or you wear it. So you're not going to be wearing armor because it has no ability to fit you. Although it is worth mentioning that as a paladin, you can channel divinity in your wild shape as long as this particular channel divinity that you're using doesn't require you to do something like speak. But though the channel divinity that the Oath of Ancients gets, the first one does not, where they get to entangle a creature. So you would actually be able to use that.
So that's super helpful, being able to do that. So you could choose to wear your amulet that is your holy symbol, or your symbol of your faith, and therefore now you're channeling divinity as well. So pretty awesome if you ask me.
So when you top this build out, you're going to be either 6th or 8th level paladin, depending on what you decide to go with. And you're going to be either a 12th or 14th level druid, depending on what you decide to go with. You're going to be able to wild shape into CR4 creatures. So you're going to have a nice choice, a nice array of animals that you can use as weapons at your disposal.
Yeah, four is a good solid number. And, I think you're going to be able to hit hard and hit harder with those smites.
Now the question is, how would we use this particular character as a NPC?
So you could have this, be, something that you have on standby that, suppose your players, happen to make some bad choices. They do it often, and this could be someone that comes to the rescue at a crux moment when they're out in the wilderness and they're being set upon by bad things. Or maybe your characters are making poor decisions in the forest, and this is the adversary that they have to face. And, maybe it's got animals that are there fighting with it, and you're like, oh, I'm being set upon by 3 bears, no big deal, until one of them bites you a couple of times and you feel this massive concussion of radiant energy, and it's like, holy crud, what was that?
I think this also works as the misunderstanding NPC as well, where all the classic superhero team ups start with them fighting and then they realize they're on the same side, and then they ally, but not before they have an epic throwdown.
You could lay some awesome, lore and story about, this wolf that guards the forest. We've seen spectral wings emerge from its back, and radiant energy glowing from its mouth as it hunts and stalks its prey. Beware, and you can see all these things, and people are like, oh my God, what are these people on? This is stupid. This is ridiculous. It's no way a thing. I'm going to go see this.
And then the wolf swoops down upon the party.
So, and this could lead to the misunderstanding or what have you. But I think, if once you put this into an NPC status, you could give it that high level druid ability that they've become immortal, and you have this thing that's just constantly out there, and add this character as a serious, staple in your world for this particular region. And, he protects everything that's around, and, it could wind up being an NPC that they role play with, time and time again. Maybe it becomes a story moment when something winds up happening to this character and they start aging again. You could do so much with it. I'm just full of ideas.
Also, just because they're a protector of the wild doesn't mean they're nice. They might like the wild and animals and nature, but they may not like people. So, it could just straight up be an adversary that wants to destroy the party because they are where they don't belong. Maybe they give the party an option: go around, do not go through my forest, and I'll leave you alone. But if you trespass, we will destroy you.
This is my domain. You do not belong here. You stand upright. This is no good.
or the party has kobolds, goblins, other monstrous creatures amongst them, and this particular protector of the wild doesn't like those. Maybe they're a bigot, and like that's an orc. That's an orc with an axe. It must die, and it could start that way as well. So there is a ton of different ways you could use this NPC in your game.
So, I mean, I think that high wisdom, that high charisma, that's going to speak to them being able to, make good decisions. But, that being said, an orc with an axe in a forest, you pretty much expect what's going to come there. So, yeah, I could see them doing that.
Good is relative. So what do you think? Would you use this NPC in your game? Would you play this character in your game? Maybe you've already played it. I don't know. We got a place where you talk about it down in the comments below. We also, on your way down there, you'll be able to find a link to D&D Beyond. But before we go, I want to invite you to join Nerdarchy, the adventuring party, over on Patreon. Ted, what can they find there?
We're creating products every month for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that both players and DMs alike can drop right into their game.
But that's not all. We do monthly giveaways, and the patrons are automatically entered.
We also do weekly hangouts with our patrons and more.
Quest on down to the description where you can find the link. Join the Nerdarchy adventuring party, and until next time, stay nerdy.